Hi, and welcome back to Football Made Simple. Arsenal's transition period since the departure of Wenger continues, with the club currently in 9th, albeit with a game in hand and only 5 points off 5th place. However, if Arsenal are to get back in the Champions League and consistently re-establish themselves there, several areas in the squad need strengthening. So in this video, we take a look at what transfers are needed. So what are these areas that need strengthening? Well, Arsenal have a lot of areas that could be improved, but for this video, we'll focus on 3. Defensively, Arsenal have struggled. With 36 goals conceded, 8 teams have conceded less often than they have, and their expected goals against is even worse, at 42 goals. So if nothing is done, the defense will continue to deteriorate, so a good centre-back would help to elevate the defense. In midfield, for large parts of the season, Xhaka has been played as the midfield anchor, but he doesn't have the mobility to get around the pitch defensively, or the required discipline. And although Torreira is an option, having one true defensive midfielder in the squad is not a good play, so a defense-focused defensive midfielder is another priority. Lastly, Arsenal have been lacking a true left winger for several seasons now, meaning that the width has been lacking. At the same time, their only goal threats have been Aubameyang and Lacazette, being the only two with XGs of over 5, meaning that a left winger is another priority. So the first position to fill is centre-back. One of the goals is to lower the age profile, as Luiz, Mustafi and Socrates are all 28 and over. After impressing at Etienne, the assumption will be that 19-year-old Saliba will occupy one of the slots, so his centre-back partner should have more experience than him, so 23 to 27 is the ideal age range. As Saliba is a more proactive defender, positional awareness is key for his partner, and in an Arteta team, on-the-ball ability will also be important. Being left-footed would be an advantage, but not a necessity. The first option for Arsenal is Jason Denayer. Denayer has been impressing since arriving in Liga, helping the club to some good finishes. He has been an ever-present and has a good injury record, which would be an advantage. Arteta values possession, and on the ball, Denayer is good, if not spectacular, circulating the ball comfortably to help build up the play, with short passing and completing more passes than any current Arsenal centre-back. When space opens up in front of him, he is also perfectly capable of dribbling higher up the pitch to open up better passing angles, which would be useful against teams who sit deeper and hold their position. And defensively, he would be the perfect foil to Saliba, who prefers to leave rank and press the marker, whereas Denayer more often uses his positioning to stop the opposition rather than diving into tackles. This discipline means that he rarely fouls the opposition and has yet to be booked this season. Transfermarkt, who tend to undervalue players, have him valued at 12 million euros, and he only has 2 years left on his contract, so Arsenal should be able to tempt him out, but they may look to aim slightly higher. Which brings us onto the more ambitious option for Arsenal, which is Jonathan Tah. Tah has impressed in Germany from a young age, and his game has gone from strength to strength at Bayer Leverkusen. Defensively, he's supreme, and at 6'5" he is good in the air, although his aerial percentage isn't the highest. He's a fairly active defender, contributing to a high number of tackles and interceptions to break up the opposition play higher up. But the one criticism of Tah is that 1 versus 1 he can easily be bypassed at times, so Arsenal would look to avoid these situations. But on the ball, he would be perfect for Arteta, completing over 80 passes per game. And this isn't just sideways passing. He's crucial to Leverkusen's build-up, with line-breaking passes whilst being press-resistant, meaning that his XG chain and XG build-up are fairly high. Valued at 29 million euros, with a rumoured release clause of 34 million pounds, he'd be a great signing, but with several top clubs needing centre-backs, it seems optimistic to say he'll join Arsenal. So that leaves us with who I believe is the perfect option for Arteta, Borussia's Nico Elvedi. Although still 23, he has plenty of experience, having debuted at 17. And he can play in any position across the back 4, but undoubtedly is most comfortable at centre-back. He is excellent on the ball, completing 54 passes per game, and notably, he almost always goes short, which plays into Arteta's hands. His on-the-ball proficiency stands out, and he has a fairly high XG chain and build-up per 90. Defensively, he's just as capable, using his sense of positioning to dominate the play, with 2.4 interceptions per game, whilst being comfortable in 1 versus 1 duels, with 1.7 completed tackles. At the same time, he's great in the air and has a 61% win rate. There will be stiff competition for Valverde, and valued at 28 million euros, given Arsenal's financial situations, usually they wouldn't be able to afford him, but with just 1 year on his contract, Arsenal should throw everything at him. Now we move on to defensive midfield. The player has to be good on the ball, but undoubtedly the priority will be on defensive output. The first shout is an outside shout, Eduardo Camavinga. At just 17 years of age, he is already making waves as one of the best defensive midfielders in Liga. Positionally, he's capable of playing in a double pivot if Arteta sticks to the 4-2-3-1, but if you were to shift to a 4-3-3, Camavinga can be the sole pivot. His main strength is staying touch tight to his opponents so they cannot receive the ball between the lines, and as a result, he puts up a mammoth 4.2 tackles per game. And he's able to read the game fairly well, sweeping up behind the midfield to intercept dangerous plays with 1.4 interceptions per game. He's also quick and physical, allowing him to cover large parts of the pitch alone. On the ball, he's more limited, mainly passing the ball onto nearby teammates rather than line-breaking passes to initiate dangerous phases, although at 17 he has plenty of time to improve this. As a result, his XG chain and build-up per 90 are fairly low, but this would work perfectly alongside Guendouzi or Xhaka as they could provide the progression. Camavinga would be hard to obtain, valued at almost 40 million euros, and plenty of giants already circling him. Although he only has 2 years left on his current contract, it's difficult to see him joining Arsenal in the upcoming window. So the alternative is Franck Anguissa, on loan at Villarreal from Fulham. Despite a patchy spell in the Premier League, in La Liga, Anguissa has risen back to the level expected of him. Yes, the midfielder we're searching for should be defensive primarily, but Anguissa can do that and so much more. He can play deep as a pivot or advance higher as more of a box-to-box midfielder. When sitting deeper, he's proactive, looking to stay tight on his man and not giving him the room to turn, whilst using his speed to intercept as well, meaning that his defensive output is still good. But he averages 2.4 dribbles per game, meaning that from deep, he can beat the press and move the team upwards. As a result, he could work in tandem with Torreira, with the pair being an effective shield and Anguissa having the permission to spring forward, knowing that he has cover in behind. He's currently valued at 20 million euros, and Fulham purchased him for 25 million euros and may want to see a return on that investment. But with the current global situation, meaning that many clubs are in need of cash, Arsenal may just be able to get a cut price deal. Villarreal has the option to buy, but clubs can feel free to match the offer. Lastly, we move on to the left winger. The winger should be able to provide width, but at the same time, tuck in to either provide a goal threat or a creative outlet, as these are both things that Arsenal have lacked. The first option is Norwich's Emiliano Buendia. Buendia has played primarily on the right, but being right-footed will be comfortable inverting from the left as he tends to drift central anyway. He has consistently been one of the league's most creative players, despite featuring in a fairly poor Norwich side. From these central areas, he's involved in the build-up play, with 42 passes per game. Many of these are defense splitting, with 2.6 key passes per game. And when he does get wide, he's comfortable crossing, with 1.3 accurate crosses per game, or taking on a man to create better opportunities, completing 3.3 dribbles per game. And the stats indicate he would be much more of a creative winger than a goal threat. Defensively, he's also a hard worker, and a great presser, which Arteta would like. Currently valued at 15 million euros, and with a long-term contract, the fact that Norwich looks set to go down means that he'll probably be available at a reasonable price. But what would be a suitable alternative? One option would be Leon Bailey of Leverkusen, who'd be a great signing, but today's recommendation is Borussia Mönchengladbach's Marcus Thuram. Thuram has played across the front line this season, predominantly up front as well as on the left. And with Aubameyang rumoured to be leaving, having Thuram means a potential backup for Lacazette while still getting a winger. Thuram loves getting one-on-one with his defenders to attempt to beat them through a combination of skill, his speed, and the fact that he's a 6'4" winger, meaning that he can outmuscle most fullbacks. Once he gets past his man, he doesn't tend to use lofted crosses, instead getting his head up for a controlled cutback to a teammate. Thuram also has plenty of speed, meaning that from deeper position, he can be played in behind and onto goal for the finish. He has a perfect balance of goal threat and creativity, with the totals of XG and expected assists per 90 showing this. Thuram is valued at 23 million euros, with plenty of time left on his contract, and the fact that his agent is Mino Raiola can make things trickier. But if Arsenal can get him, this would help upgrade the left wing. But what do you make of the recommended transfers, and what other positions need strengthening? Drop them down in the comments below. But that's all for today, and remember, keep it simple.